That's kind of jarring, isn't it? When you see FromSoft's logo, I feel like most people expect a game like Dark Souls. Super hard with dramatic music yelling at. As some of you know, FromSoft didn't come into existence and make Demon Souls. They existed beforehand. In fact, they didn't develop their moniker of making super hard games for over a decade, if the copyright of this game is to be trusted at all. But appearances are deceiving, and this game is not what it seems. Wait, you control 2 characters at the same time? Well, that's the control scheme I'm using. The other 2 require 2 controllers, and, well, I mean, you expect the typical YouTuber lonely joke here, right? No, I just didn't want to play with other people. What, I'm not lonely. Hey, I have friends. The name of the game in this, game is teamwork. Lowering bridges, raising platforms, it's almost like dungeon duos for Mario Party. But you know, instead of being one minigame in a sometimes multiple hour-long game, it's the entire game. It's not all bad though. The game tries to keep itself interesting in many ways. One way is by refusing to let you stay still. If you stay still for too long, an enemy comes to grab you, and take away time. It's a different enemy in every world, but they all function the same. Wait, take away time? Worlds? Man, I gotta pace my videos better. So, watching this gameplay, the keen-eyed among you may have already figured out how your health works. When you play through a level, you start with 100 seconds. There are pocket watches strewn about the level that increase your time. 20 seconds for silver ones, and 50 seconds for gold ones. But getting hit makes you lose 20 seconds, and standing still takes away a variable amount of time depending on the area. As for the areas, there are a few, which can be tackled in kind of any order. You do have to do the jungle world first, then you unlock access to 2 more, and you can kinda go in a circle from there. But every world ends with a boss, and the cutscenes feel especially like they show signs of Dark Souls. It's almost like symptoms of Dark Souls. It's like a disease. You have to get diagnosed at the doctor's office. Yeah, all the symptoms are here. I'm sorry. I'm afraid I'm gonna have to diagnose you with Dark Souls. Just look at this one. Both Cookie and Cream run into the boss arena, and the big boss is shown off along with a ton of other smaller guys up on rafters. Is that not just the Tower Knight? The boss itself is, well, nothing like the Tower Knight. Why would you say that? What is wrong with you? Much like the normal level design, the bosses of this game are less gameplay focused and are more puzzle focused, with the puzzles being like, have the boss run under a certain point so you can hit it, and bump the boss with some ice, or 6 clones show up and one is the real one. You can tell which one is the real one by the one with the shadow. But even though this purple clone has a shadow, you can't hit it. Duh. And randomly figure out that you have to simultaneously hit 2 legs of this boss without any indication. Segue. Did I mention the controls yet? I hate the controls in this game. So, you move each character with 1 stick. That doesn't sound too bad. Wait, yes it does? How do you expect me to do this? Oh yeah, just platform from one thing to the next while managing a completely different situation. Oh, and don't stand still now, or some goddamn creature will just fly down and take away all your time. All of it. It never stops. Just calm down. Deep breaths. Even when you manage to get the platforming down, which I never did, the puzzles in this game are really cryptic. We'll get to more of the bosses later, but seriously, some of the puzzles are really hard to figure out without hints from these roosters that are just here for some reason. And if you're anything like me, you don't really like getting hints. I don't know, something about it just feels wrong in a game that's more puzzle focused. But also, sometimes you'll be experimenting and come across the solution, but not realize it, and it's really frustrating. Like in this level at the end, you have to use both these levers to pull this bridge up. But like, I did that, and it didn't work until I read the sign for some reason. I think I'm just stupid. Well, what else to do but to go into more specifics, right? The game starts out pretty simple, in the forest world. One person presses a button, the other person gets to move. It's a good introduction, and it allows someone like me to get my footing with controlling two characters. The puzzles can be cool too, like with the pushing of logs, or restraining of alligators so we can progress. The game does a good job accommodating for all skill levels of players at first too, with optional puzzles that can be skirted with just some good platforming. The first boss isn't too far into the game either, only about 15 minutes of gameplay. This is the Tower Knight guy. Just ram some stuff into his body, and he gets smaller with every hit, which, you know, isn't the most difficult puzzle. It ended up being pretty easy, for the most part. This boss has the first instance of characters that cross control schemes. Basically, when Cookie, who has always been controlled with the left stick, and stayed on the left side of the screen, passes over to the right, well, it's kinda hard to manage that in my head, because then I want to use the right stick to control the character on the right. It's not too much of an issue here, but it definitely becomes one later, when being able to do this is more expected of the player. You could basically consider that first world just a tutorial though, because the entire game after that gets really hard. On just the next world, and on the second obstacle, we run out of time and die. Is that just because I'm dumb? Maybe. Is it still hard? Yes. Generally though, the puzzles in the music world still remain pretty simple. I just think some of them lack, I don't know, good design? Like this one with the trombone. With Cookie, you can move the trombone slide to make it play higher or lower. Then, Cream can play into the mouthpiece. The issue I came across is like, what's the point of this? It's hard to notice that it's actually moving the platform in the back, at least for me it was. So, when I stumbled into the right solution, I just moved on, not really knowing what I'd done. And there's also this puzzle, just a level later. You're supposed to hear one of a few jingles when Cookie steps on this button, and mimic it on the keyboard. But when you're experimenting, especially while controlling two characters, I'm thinking about the relative pitch of these notes and standing still. But since I'm not allowed to do that, I lose a lot of time, and am incredibly lucky to make it to the end with just 2 seconds left. Skill issue? Again, yeah, but I still think it's bad design. Oh, you don't know bad design until you've seen the next boss. I'll let you see what I did upon first fighting it. No context, just as much as I had. So, I already told you the solution, but seriously, I feel like I tried everything I could here. Hitting one simple leg, hitting at the same time, swinging in rhythm just in case it was some musical or stamina-based thing. I even tried swinging randomly like a madman, but it literally just never did anything. Finally, when I stumbled upon the solution of hitting two legs at the same time, the game decided to swap the positions of my characters. Just when I had it, it made it infinitely harder. The music of this boss fight, though, It's actually a banger. But once I'd figured it out, he went down like instantly. The next world, the trick world, was actually my favorite. It felt hyper-focused on puzzles, and I could see myself having lots of fun if I was playing multiplayer. I also like how it felt like we got shrunk down, because there are children's toys everywhere, like we were in Toy Story or Teen Room from Gmod. I particularly think this puzzle with the weight was really interesting to figure out. To realize you can push it into the pit and respawn it, and how to maneuver in such a way and order that both Cookie and Cream got to the raised goal. And then in the next level, you get to control a bigger toy and wreak havoc, like a transformation segment. That feels so cool. Each character controls one tread, and you have to both attack at the same time to destroy objects in your way. It's gimmicky, but it's really fun, and was a nice change of pace from the admittedly simple movement. Then, a couple levels later, there's this bird in a birdhouse, but it's mechanical and it's one of those clock things. I go up to it, thinking it's something to do with the puzzle, and I interact with it, and it just says, "Get." Get? What does that mean? Sure enough, I got it, and it's on the title screen when I open the game. What a weird little thing to just have in your game. It's cool though. The boss has us ride a car, Cookie controlling the acceleration, and Cream handling the turning. And the boss is a cool take on the classic boss trope of spitting its own projectiles back at it. It's pretty hard though. You bounce off the walls like you're made of rubber, and the turning and acceleration are pretty slippery. Not that that's a bad thing, it just helps me see the roots of FromSoft's difficulty. Well, naturally, after killing the boss, we go to the next world, and it's just like absurdly hard. It focuses way too much on the controls and timing, and simultaneously make you hate your pitiful hands gameplay. I'm glad I had the foresight to quit out and come back later. That being the said, I cannot talk today. That being said, the desert world wasn't much easier, although it was still doable. Although it has you go in a cave for some reason. Not very desert-like. This is where the puzzles start to get pretty time-based too, which was the one thing that made them easy or at all possible for me. This minecart one is particularly bad. There's no setup that lets you cruise through the track and get all the goodies. You have to press the button mid-ride or you're done for. The boss, Jean Paul? Okay. The totem is pretty easy to shorten and then kill. For access to Water World, I don't know. This world isn't notable for anything I haven't already talked about. More puzzles, another transformation, a simple enough boss, you know, same old same old. The Ice World, however, is so dumb. This canoe requires Cookie to move the stick clockwise to row, which by itself isn't bad. Cream, however, has to rotate counterclockwise, which is like rubbing your stomach and patting your head, only made 10 times worse. This sucks more when you can't just go straight the whole time. You have to move left, right, and move quickly at certain times. It's only like a 1-minute segment, but it made my hands hurt, man. My hands are hurting thinking about it, as I'm writing this, and as I'm recording this. Other than that, this level has a couple cool puzzles, one about moving a block in 2 separate yet connected mazes, and another about drilling through this ice, which is a cool real-world thing that this game includes. The boss here is a cool little take on Pong, with you damaging the boss in between bouncing these projectiles. And it has an old cartoon-like ending, and that's always a plus. Then we come back to the magic world. It's magical in the way that FromSoft ever thought this was a good idea. How could you, Miyazaki? Stand on random shadows, unkillable enemies, like what is this? Oh yeah, reverse controls on both characters while you ride on these balls. I had to turn my controller upside down to be able to do it. because who thought that was a good idea? The boss, the one I mentioned earlier, my only note for it was just ONS, as in Ornstein and Smough from Dark Souls. So I'll let you make do with that. And then we have the final world, which is where you can tell they ran out of ideas. There's a first boss refight, a FromSoft classic I see. Enemies start to take multiple hits to destroy, which you can very clearly tell isn't really something that works in this engine, since when you land from jumping on an enemy, you have a bit of N-lag, in which you'll just get hit anyway. There's actually a mechanic in the last level that has an interesting cause, I think. If you fall off the edge of this map, you don't just lose time, you just lose. It's just over. To me, this is only because of the crumbling platforms, because if you were to respawn, the game would be impossible. And the final boss that comes after all this is the moon we've been hunting this whole time.
This game has like actually high quality cutscenes for some reason. Why is the floor falling apart? No, Cream! No! No, she's dead. The chicken saved her. Oh, are we flying on them now? On chickens? Or are they just... oh, they're just carrying us up to the top of the castle. The moon. Oh shit, he has eyes. He does not care, dude.
And he's really annoying. You have to hit him with these cannons, and he'll randomly target either Cookie or Cream, and pick one of a couple attacks. The yellow one, where he lands and spins around, the blue one, where he repeatedly drops and starts crying, and the dark one, where the screen gets darker and he bounces a few times. That's not too bad, but there's no clock drops, and you only have 100 seconds, even less if you get hit. This is the only boss to have a phase 2 though, and it's pretty simple. You just have to kick all these small moons off the edge of the arena, but it's definitely killed its fair share of runs. So what do I think about this game? Well, it's bad. There's no denying that in my eyes. Cryptic puzzles and really weird controls that I never got the hang of. But it's also a bit of fun if you're not taking it seriously. It's really silly in some places, and if you just play it alone or with a friend to have a good time, I'm sure you would. I mean, you would. Look at you.